Last year, between 45 and 49 trade unionists were assassinated. The situation in Colombia for union activists has been well known for more than a decade now as being the worst country in the world for union members and leaders in terms of extrajudicial executions or assassinations.
Just as our economy is a global economy now, and it's impacted by countries and individuals throughout the world, so are our rights as working people and as citizens of different countries.
To be labeled as a union member or union activist is basically to have a target placed on your back or maybe even your forehead, and that's not something that most of us would be willing to do very lightly. Even though assassinations have gone down, death threats continue to be a very common threat against trade unionists.
I was invited probably a year before the trip down to Colombia by a Colombian labor leader who was here in Canada, in British Columbia, and he said basically you coming would be very, very important to us, both for our members, but certainly government officials who see Canadians coming down and doing these types of visits.
I think it's hard for us to understand from here, but we have been told over and over again by our Colombian partners the absolute extreme importance of having foreigners come and be present in those communities, in those organizations, in their offices. Those organizations are being watched by paramilitaries, otherwise maybe known as death squads, on a daily basis often. And when they see that there's international presence coming and hearing those stories and being there, they know those organizations are not alone, and it makes them less vulnerable. And that is incalculable in terms of the value it provides.
We have a number of allies and partners that we work with in different parts of Central and South America, and actually around the world. Primarily unions and non-government organizations, NGOs, that work on the rights of either their members if they're unions, or within places like Colombia, the rights of people to maintain their land and to be protected from what would be, I guess, government officials or large corporations that may want to take their lands and their rights away. Well, there's probably a number of things that would be of benefit to the Colombians from our particular visits. Number one is to know that somebody else is watching, and having an opportunity to meet with government officials there. I think really we had the opportunity to stress that Canada and Canadians are watching what's happening in other countries.
We met with a wide variety of individuals and organizations and communities. That was just amazing. We met first with Nomadesk, which is a human rights education and advocacy organization that the BCGEU partners with. And through Nomadesk, we were able to meet with a number of communities. One of them was the wives and mothers and sisters of sugarcane workers in one of the rural areas there, as well as with the Afro-Colombian communities in that area. And so we're able to get right to the grassroots of some of the issues, how people are facing them at the grassroots.
Mi nombre es Celeita, soy directora de la Asociación para la Investigación y Acción Social Nómades, organización defensora de derechos.
I am the director of the Association for Research and Social Action, Nomadesk, an organization that has been working in defense of human rights for the last 10 years. We've brought a program here of 15 graduates where indigenous peasant groups are trained in human rights. This work has been possible because various organizations have supported us. Amongst them is the BC Government Employees Union, with whom for many years, from about 2000 or 2001, we've had an important relationship. This is facilitated by the solidarity of Co-Development Canada.
A partir de la solidaridad que CoDev Canada.
We also met with FENALTRACE, which is a federation of public sector unions. And this ranges from municipal workers to federal workers that are equivalent of federal workers. We met with them in Medellin and were able to go and meet to some workplaces and meet with workers in their workplace, such as municipal traffic police. And that was very interesting too, because it gave us another perspective on some of the challenges of being trade unionists in Colombia, but also some of the really important labor rights issues that are being faced there, even around bargaining and collective bargaining and negotiating, because it's something the public sector doesn't have the right to there.
One boat trip that was, I believe, 2 hours or more from Cali to where we were going, just a small fishing village, kind of in the middle of nowhere, you might say. And we were talking with people there about the constitution of the country and their rights to protect their land and their hold on their land. Probably more memorable because partway through the discussions, the Army showed up in terms of young men with what would be Rambo fatigues and automatic weapons and so on. It was somewhat nerve-wracking, but the folks there basically just continued to tell us their story as if they weren't going to be harassed or bullied into changing what they were doing.
We went to Bogota, which is the capital of Colombia, and we met with a number of organizations there. One of them is the Public Sector Union of the Workers at the Human Rights Ombudsperson Office, which isn't something we have here, but it is basically a federal office where people can take human rights complaints. The workers there are extremely passionate about human rights, obviously, because that's their work, and the union that they're a part of has been an important partner of ours too, for us again to have a sense of not only the labor situation but the human rights situation generally. And in fact, in that office we had a bit of a fiesta, a party to celebrate our meeting again, and it was a joyous occasion as well as hearing some of their difficult stories.
A nombre del Movimiento Sindical de Colombia y de los trabajadores y sindicatos del sector público.
In the name of the Union Movement of Colombia and the workers and the unions of the public sector, as President of the Union of Human Rights Ombudsperson, I would like to give a heartfelt thanks to all our brothers and sisters of the BCGEU, and especially to your President Darrell Walker. We met with him in our country during this very important delegation. His visit will contribute to the strengthening of our union and for the protection of our lives and union activity, which is so risky and difficult in our country. To all of you, brothers and sisters, a big hug from the Colombian labor movement.
Para todos ustedes, hermanos y hermanas, un fuerte abrazo desde el Movimiento Sindical de Colombia.
We met with a lawyers group called the Lawyers Collective. They are maybe one of the most important organizations in the country working on human rights law. And for that, they're under tremendous threat, every member of their organization. We were able to meet with the head of the organization and one of their lawyers, a young woman who is the daughter of a trade unionist who was assassinated several years ago. And that meeting was also really important for us to get a side of the legal fight, the legal struggle for human rights. Our delegation was able to meet with some representatives from the Canadian Embassy. And this is something I think is always important on any of these trips, is for Canadians to be able to meet with our official representatives in the country and for those representatives to be able to hear our concerns and our questions. We were very fortunate in being able to get a meeting with the Vice Minister of Interior and Justice in Colombia. That meeting was set up and really was made possible by the President of the Human Rights Ombudspeople's Office, the President of that union. She accompanied us on this meeting, and that too was very important because not only were we coming as Canadians with concerns, we had a Colombian partner with us that allowed her to have access to a vice minister, which is, a very high up position in the government. This was a great delegation. CoDev and the BCGEU have worked together for more than 10 years, and with our Colombian partner for 4 or 5 years. So it was really a good opportunity for us to be able to go and visit with those partners on the ground. The GEU delegation was interested. In every meeting we had, people were very attentive and very involved in hearing from the people there, very respectful, and after every meeting we had a debrief about how inspiring that was, or just some need to discuss the importance of the work that is being done on the ground. There's a global imperative, I would say, on the part of trade unionists to be part of a global solidarity movement. I think that we cannot isolate ourselves in our own country and pretend that the issues and the problems that we're facing aren't global in nature. So we have to, as they say in Spanish, we have to globalize our solidarity.
The impact, as much as anything, was to see how poor people can actually be and how, I guess, well-to-do others can be, and then realize that your country is in the process of negotiating a trade deal with Colombia that will keep the rich richer and the poor even poorer. It will impact me in terms of wanting to try and bring about some kind of change and make sure international solidarity and the work that our International Solidarity Committee at the BCGEU does is not only maintained but enhanced. Send more people to meet with those that are fighting for their very existence, and we're prepared to support them in any way we can, and that they're not in the movement, in the fight, social justice, labor, they're not in it alone, that they have allies.